Hey there, my name is Cindy Hunter, and this is week 8 of Interactive Advanced Concepts for Chem 126. This week we are going to be making kinetic sand. So before we start making our kinetic sand, I wanted to talk a little bit about the science behind kinetic sand. So in commercially made kinetic sand, they typically use silicone to make the kinetic sand it holds together and it absorbs the pressure when you're molding it into shapes. But because of the nature of silicone, silicone oil just sticks to dry matter and to really itself instead of getting on your hands and kind of being a sticky substance. It doesn't have that sort of same texture. So instead of using the made stuff already in the manufacturers, what we're doing is making our own. So instead of silicone being present, we're using cornstarch. And if anybody's ever mixed cornstarch and water, the ratio depends a lot on what kind of thickness you get out of cornstarch. And the other thing is if anybody's mixed cornstarch and water in like a large quantity, you know that it resists force. So when you stick it in like your spoon into the bowl that you've mixed cornstarch in, it resists. Whereas if you like put a clump of it when it's hard in your hand, it runs like glue. So we're gonna essentially use the same properties of cornstarch to replace the silicone in our pre-made kinetic sand. So with this experiment, we're gonna be using just soap. We've got some water. I did get some food coloring just to make it interesting. And we've got sand and cornstarch. So the biggest trial with this experiment is going to be really getting the texture right. The video that we watched, she did a lot of trials, right? She did, I don't know, she ended up, her favorite was slime, and we're not making slime to make this. So we're gonna see if, we're just gonna see how it turns out. But my hope is that we can kind of use dry ingredients together, mix that up, and then put our wet ingredients and kind of slowly incorporate so we can finally get the proper texture. But let's get started. So I have just about, well, it's a heaping cup. So I'm not gonna put all of this in here in case we need some extra, but we're gonna put about a cup of sand, and we just have regular old play sand from Home Depot. And now I use this for cooking, so I do not want sand in my cornstarch. So let's get the lid off. And I'm gonna use this as a rudimentary measuring device. It's not exactly a tablespoon. Okay, so we've got maybe a tablespoon and a half. Let's try a little bit more because I really want this to stick together. Alternately, what I kind of considered before this experiment, and I haven't tried it, but I thought about if we really had a problem with this sticking together to kind of really be able to mold it, I thought about using or adding even like body lotion, because most of the time silicones can be found in that. I thought maybe that would work. Sometimes like moisturizing soap will have silicone in it. Sometimes that can work. So we're gonna try to mix that. Just your water and your soap. I probably put around 2 teaspoons in here. I'm not gonna add the food coloring until a little bit later because I really want to see before I start adding this if we can get this texture right. I'm not gonna add much because you can always add more, but you can't take it back. Okay. Just a pinch more. So this is a little bit too wet. So thankfully, we have extra sand we can add back. Let's try adding that much back. On the plus side, it smells pretty nice because it smells really clean. So that's kind of fun. I know a lot of people do this experiment with kids, especially right now with the coronavirus going on. This may be something fun to share with your friends and family. You can kind of have a little bit of fun while you're stuck at home. Definitely too wet. Most definitely too wet. So I'm gonna also add a little bit more cornstarch, see if it absorbs any of the extra water, maybe. It may be a problem because, you know, sometimes adding cornstarch to a cold liquid doesn't exactly integrate itself very well, but we're gonna try to do the best we can. Just a little too wet. So when you're making this, best advice I can tell you is definitely, see, I barely put any water, like maybe 2 ounces. So that's like 4 tablespoons, maybe not even that much. And it's still just too much. So I'm gonna try just a little bit more, see if maybe adding a good bit more cornstarch will help. We'll see. Right now, I'm feeling like, you know, this experiment really just needs a good bit more sand, but we'll try it anyway, see what happens. Way too wet. Well, I don't think this is the right texture. Fun, but not quite what we were hoping for. See, like when you first incorporate the cornstarch, you see how it's kind of like sticking to itself? It's resisting. But then it eventually almost melts. It's like classic cornstarch. This may work. Let's see. Maybe the trick is you just keep adding cornstarch until you finally get the texture you're looking for. That would be great. Okay. Okay, it's holding. It's definitely more, it's still wet, but seems like that's the key. More cornstarch. So while this is still wet, we could probably add a little bit more cornstarch, but check this out, watch. Because cornstarch, whenever you're putting force on it, it likes to hold a firm shape, but when you let it go, it'll quickly flatten and kind of mold to whatever. So this, of course, isn't going to probably pull apart like pre-made kinetic sand, but there is some elasticity, and that's really what you want from kinetic sand. So that's like the video that we watched. She was using slime because you definitely get that stretchy, whereas this one doesn't quite stretch. So, but I'm happy with right now, just because at least it's holding its shape. And, you know, I would say this is at least a good starting point to be able to revise and kind of make it your own and see what works for you guys. But it seems like cornstarch is definitely the thing that needs to be added instead of sand. I thought we were going to need more sand, but it turns out we really probably do better with the cornstarch, I guess, as that substitute for the silicone. All right, well, that was Kinetic Sand, and hope you enjoyed. Thanks.